Hi, welcome to the Hurricane Utah Adult Religion class, sponsored by the Hurricane Utah North Stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm Mike Parker, and since 2008, it's been my privilege to be the instructor for this class. The Hurricane Utah Adult Religion class meets on Thursday evenings between September and May to discuss the scriptures, teachings, and history of the restored Church of Jesus Christ. If you live in or are visiting the Hurricane St. George area, I'd love to have you join us. Time and location are available on the class website. There's a link to that in the show notes just below this video. Also on the class website, you can download my notes, which includes footnotes documenting my sources, this PowerPoint presentation, and handouts that I distribute in class. Please note that this YouTube channel and the class website are not official sites of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Hurricane Utah North Stake, or any other church unit or department. I alone am responsible for the content on these sites. What you're about to see is a recording of my notes for one of the lessons. If you enjoy this video, please click the like button and share it with a friend. And please feel free to subscribe if you'd like to be notified when new content is posted to this channel. My friends, the gospel of Jesus Christ is true. Joseph Smith was a prophet of God, and the authority and keys that he held are now vested in the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And most importantly, Jesus Christ is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. I hope you enjoy this lesson. This is the third of 5 lessons on the book of Isaiah. In this lesson, I'll be discussing the prophecies Isaiah gave to the people of Judah between 715 and 701 BC. The events described in Isaiah chapters 36 through 39 are also recorded in 2 Kings chapters 18 through 20 and 2 Chronicles chapter 32. I've prepared a handout that puts these 3 passages in parallel columns and has explanatory footnotes. There's a link in the show notes to download this handout in PDF format. You can also go to www.huarc.org to download all the handouts, notes, and slideshows from this course. This is the longest reading block in the 5-week study of Isaiah in this course, comprising nearly 40% of the book by word count. 1 week of the church's Come Follow Me schedule covers about half of this material. Because there's so much material to cover, I'll focus this lesson on some of the more important passages. I'll also provide a complete outline to chapters 13 to 39 in my notes, which you can download by going to the class page linked in the show notes below. A note about textual development. As I discussed in my first lesson on Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah did not write all his prophecies at once. Much of what he wrote was produced at specific times and under specific circumstances. Later scribes edited and compiled his prophecies into the book that bears his name. The chapters covered in this lesson are not arranged in chronological order within the book of Isaiah, and there are no breaks in the original Hebrew to indicate where one prophecy ends and another begins. Unfortunately, these make reading Isaiah more challenging than it already is. In the last lesson, I reviewed the Syro-Ephraimite War of 732 to 728 BC, in which the kingdoms of Syria, or Aram, and Israel, or Ephraim, formed an alliance against Assyria, the dominant power in the ancient Near East at that time. When the kingdom of Judah refused to join their alliance, Syria and Israel attacked her, hoping to overthrow King Ahaz of Judah and put a puppet ruler on the throne. Acting against the counsel of the prophet Isaiah, King Ahaz called on Assyria for protection. The Assyrians overthrew Syria, made Israel and Judah vassal states, and forced them to pay tribute. Only a few years after the Syro-Ephraimite War, Israel rebelled against Assyria again. In 721 BC, the Assyrian king Sargon II invaded Israel and deported her inhabitants to distant lands. Judah remained a vassal state to Assyria. The material in this lesson consists of 5 major sections. Chapters 13 through 23 contain oracles against foreign nations, including Babylon, Syria, Israel, Egypt, and others. Chapters 24 through 27 are called the Apocalypse of Isaiah. These prophecies predicted a coming universal judgment and a restoration of God's kingdom. Chapters 28 through 33 is Isaiah's prophecy of the judgment that would come upon Israel and Judah, but with the promise of the possibility of deliverance. Chapters 34 and 35 are a promise of the Lord's vengeance upon the nations and blessing for the remnant. Chapters 36 through 39 contain a historical interlude about Isaiah, King Hezekiah of Judah, and Assyria in 701 BC. Parallel narratives are found in 2 Kings 18 through 20 and 2 Chronicles 32. In chapters 13 through 23, Isaiah gave a series of oracles that proclaimed judgment upon the nations of the ancient Near East, interspersed with assurance of better times for Judah. These prophecies were given to assure the people of Judah of the following. First, the Lord was using the Assyrian Empire to punish the wicked kingdoms of the world. Second, the Lord would one day break Assyria herself. Third, this was the Lord's plan for the entire earth. His hand was stretched out upon all the nations to strike them. Fourth, those things were a prelude to the Lord's coming judgment of the whole earth. In chapters 13 and 14, Isaiah proclaimed that the Lord was raising up a vast army to destroy the Babylonians. Isaiah probably uttered this prophecy sometime shortly after 722 BC. Before this time, the kingdom of Babylon was a vassal state to Assyria. If the date of Isaiah's prophecy is correct, the king of Babylon was Marduk Aplah Adina II, a Chaldean who seized the Babylonian throne in 722, ousted the Assyrians, and managed to maintain Babylonian independence for over a decade. Isaiah's prophecy foretold a coming time when a foreign army would come to destroy the whole land. This prophecy was partially fulfilled in 689 when King Sennacherib of Assyria leveled Babylon and many of its significant buildings. The complete fulfillment of this prophecy came when the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539. The Book of Mormon prophet Nephi concluded his long quotation of Isaiah with this prophecy. He included these 2 chapters because he, his father Lehi, and his brother Jacob had seen in vision the Babylonians slaughtering the people of Judah and taking them into captivity, and Nephi took comfort in Isaiah's promise of the restoration of his people. Isaiah prophesied that the Lord would have compassion on the house of Israel and would restore her people to their own lands where they would rest. From there, they would taunt or take up this proverb against the fallen king of Babylon. Isaiah's satirical song mocked the king of Babylon, whose spirit was in Sheol, the underground realm of the dead. Even though this song is about a mortal king, its comparison of him to a fallen god has parallels to the fall of Satan from heaven. Isaiah 14, verses 9 through 20a, New Revised Standard Version. Quote, Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. All of them will speak and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol, and the sound of your harps. Maggots are the bed beneath you, and worms are your covering. How are you fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn? How are you cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low? You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly on the heights of Saphon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world like a desert and overthrew its cities, who would not let his prisoners go home? All the kings of the nations lie in glory, each in his own tomb. But you are cast out, away from your grave, like loathsome carrion, clothed with the dead, those pierced by the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit, like a corpse trampled underfoot. You will not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land. You have killed your people. Unquote. In this poetic prophecy, Isaiah depicted the fallen king of Babylon as a mortal human ruler. He was called a man, and he possessed a physical body that could be killed. His exploits as king were recounted. He made kingdoms tremble, destroyed cities, refused to allow captive Israel to return home, and was a conqueror of nations. The other dead kings of the earth addressed him from Sheol, the postmortal world where the spirits of the dead dwell. That same passage also characterizes him as a fallen deity. This was not unusual because most ancient civilizations considered their kings to be divine in some sense. Isaiah's prophecy includes several titles and motifs that resemble those of Canaanite mythology, including the following. Isaiah called the Babylonian king Helel ben Shahar, Shining One, Son of the Dawn. The Hebrew noun Helel was probably the name for the planet Venus, the morning star, which chases the sun but never catches it. In the Septuagint, the Greek version of the Old Testament, this word was translated Heosphoros, dawnbringer. The Latin form of this noun is Lucifer, lightbringer. The Latin Vulgate Bible was one of the sources used by the translators of the King James Bible. For Isaiah 14, verse 12, they copied the Latin word Lucifer directly into English. In Isaiah's song, the Babylonian king boasted that he would raise his throne above the stars of God and sit on the Mount of Assembly on the heights of Saphon. The English word God in this passage is a translation of the Hebrew El. It refers to the chief god of the Canaanites who convened his assembly on the heights of Mount Saphon. The stars were the other deities in his heavenly court. This passage is an allusion to the mythological story about a minor Canaanite god, Helel, son of Shachar, who tried to take over Saphon, the mountain of the gods. His attempted coup failed, and he was hurled down to the underworld. In this passage, Isaiah taunted the king of Babylon for having similar failed delusions of grandeur. The idea of a fallen god who was cast out of heaven was commonplace in the ancient world. In another place in the Old Testament, the prophet Ezekiel accused the Phoenician king of Tyre of claiming to be a god and trying to ascend to the throne of the gods, only to be cast down to the underworld. These stories are similar to passages in the New Testament that describe Satan being cast down from heaven. Based on these passages, the 3rd century Christian fathers Tertullian and Origen connected Isaiah's mention of Lucifer with Satan. Outside of Isaiah 14 verse 12 and its parallel passage in 2 Nephi 24, verse 12, the word Lucifer appears only once in the scriptures, in Doctrine and Covenants 76, verse 26. The mention of Lucifer in D&C 76 is compatible with the early Christian understanding of Lucifer as the divine being who was in the presence of God before he fell. In chapter 22, Isaiah prophesied that Jerusalem would be destroyed because her people trusted in their own strength rather than in the Lord. We don't know when Isaiah received this revelation, but it most likely came after the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem in 701 BC. In the last decade of the 8th century, Egypt regained strength and began to stir up rebellion in Assyria's vassal states that lay between Egypt and Assyria. King Hezekiah of Judah allied with Egypt against Assyria. Isaiah warned Hezekiah against this move, but Hezekiah ignored the prophet's counsel. In 705, Hezekiah refused to pay tribute to Assyria and took steps to protect the city's water supply in the case of an Assyrian siege. The Assyrian king Sennacherib put down this revolt in 701 by taking the Phoenician port city of Tyre, then moving south along the seacoast. After defeating the Egyptian army that was sent to help the rebels, the Assyrians turned and attacked the kingdom of Judah. They conquered every fortified city in Judah and besieged the city of Jerusalem. Hezekiah paid heavy tribute to Sennacherib in hopes he would end the siege and spare the city. The Assyrian soldiers taunted the Jews with accounts of all the nations they had conquered. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, and an angel smote the Assyrian army at Jerusalem. The prophecy in Isaiah 22 may have followed that event. It begins with a scene of joyous victory celebration, but the Lord wept bitterly and refused to be comforted because so many of his people had been slaughtered. Foreign armies had come to their aid, and the people of Judah had relied on their own weapons and their fortifications in the city of Jerusalem, but they didn't give credit to their God who had provided those things for them. The Lord commanded them to put aside their victory celebration, humble themselves, and mourn for the dead. In the second half of the prophecy, the Lord spoke strong words against Shebna, the administrator of the palace, because he had aggrandized himself. The Lord said that he would remove Shebna from his position of power and replace him with Eliakim, the royal steward. Isaiah 22, verses 20 through 25, English Standard Version, quote, "In that day I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with your robe, and will bind your sash on him, and will commit your authority to his hand. And he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. And I will place on his shoulder the key of the house of David. And he shall open, and none shall shut. And he shall shut, and none shall open. And I will fasten him like a peg in a secure place, and he will become a throne of honor to his father's house. And they will hang on him the whole honor of his father's house, the offspring and issue, every small vessel, from the cups to all the flagons. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, the peg that was fastened in a secure place will give way, and it will be cut down and fall, and the load that was on it will be cut off, for the Lord has spoken." Unquote. Eliakim was not the Messiah, but he could be considered a type or foreshadow of the Messiah. How was Eliakim like Christ? Isaiah prophesied that Eliakim, like Jesus Christ, would receive all the power and authority of the king. He would be considered a father to the people of Judah in the sense that he would protect and support them. Eliakim would be the only one who could open the palace doors, just as Christ is the only one who can open the doors of the Father's kingdom to us. Eliakim would be like a peg in a wall that is strong and secure. that one peg would carry the weight, or glory, honor, of all sizes of cups and jars that hung from it. Likewise, Jesus would be secure and immovable in his office as the Father's promised Messiah. Unlike the Messiah, however, Isaiah prophesied that the station of Eliakim's family would come to an end, perhaps when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians. Chapters 24 through 27 are called the Apocalypse of Isaiah. The English word apocalypse comes from the Greek noun apokalypsis, which means an uncovering, an unveiling, referring to something that was once hidden but has been revealed. An apocalypse is a work of scripture that reveals God's plans for the future. In his apocalypse, Isaiah proclaimed that the Lord would bring judgment upon the world while protecting the remnant of Israel. The Lord promised that he would devastate the earth and that this judgment would affect all people equally, regardless of their wealth or station. According to Isaiah 24, verses 5 through 6, this would happen because, quote, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. Unquote. Note that it was not just covenant Israel that was under condemnation. The entire earth was defiled because all its people had broken God's covenant. What covenant are all the peoples of the world under? One possibility is the universal law prohibiting murder. Following the great flood, Noah put his sons, and through them their descendants, under covenant to not commit murder and to punish those who do. By violating this commandment, all nations of the earth are condemned. The people of Judah were especially guilty because the Lord had specifically commanded them at Mount Sinai to not commit murder. In modern revelation, the Lord declared that this judgment is still upon the peoples of the earth. Doctrine and Covenants 1, verses 13 and 15 through 16, quote, and the anger of the Lord is kindled, and his sword is bathed in heaven, and it shall fall upon the inhabitants of the earth. For they have strayed from mine ordinances, and have broken mine everlasting covenant. They seek not the Lord to establish his righteousness, but every man walketh in his own way, and after the image of his own God, whose image is in the likeness of the world, and whose substance is that of an idol, which waxeth old, and shall perish in Babylon, even Babylon the Great, which shall fall. Unquote. Isaiah 25 contains 3 psalms about the coming judgment of the wicked and blessing of the righteous. This psalm looks forward to a messianic banquet that will celebrate the overthrow of the curse that was upon the earth. Isaiah 25, verses 6 through 9, King James Version, quote, and in this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines on the lees well refined. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death in victory. And the Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces, and the rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth, for the Lord hath spoken it. And it shall be said in that day, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is the Lord. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. Unquote. This passage poetically describes the conditions during the reign of the Messiah, Christ, the Davidic king. In that day, there will be plentiful harvests, and there will be no death, fear, nor sadness. Alluding to this passage, John the Revelator described a coming day when the Lord's kingdom shall be on the earth. quote, "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." Unquote. That was Revelation 21, verse 4. The prophecy in chapter 28 was probably delivered before the fall of Israel, or Ephraim, in 721 BC. The people of Israel had mocked Isaiah's warning, so God promised to speak to them through foreign invaders, at least for a time. Isaiah explained how the people of Israel would learn the message the Lord wanted them to hear. Isaiah 28, verses 9 through 13, New Revised Standard Version, quote, "Whom will he teach knowledge? And to whom will he explain the message? Those who are weaned from milk? Those taken from the breast? For it is precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Truly, with stammering lip and with alien tongue he will speak to this people, to whom he has said, this is rest, give rest to the weary, and this is repose. Yet they would not hear. Therefore the word of the Lord will be to them, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little, in order that they may go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken." Unquote. Verses 9 and 10 describe the people of Israel who rejected Isaiah's message because they believed he was talking down to them, teaching them as if they were little children, using meaningless gibberish, senseless babbling, a syllable here, a syllable there. In verses 11 through 13, Isaiah responded that because the people would not listen to the Lord's prophets, they would have to learn from the Assyrians, whose language sounded to Jews like stammering or stuttering. They would be taught like little children, and as a result, they would walk like little children, stumbling, falling down, and hurting themselves. Likewise, if we do not learn the basic fundamental teachings of the Lord from the words of his prophets, we will end up learning the hard way by the things that we suffer because we have been disobedient. The way the Lord teaches us, as if we were children, line upon line, precept upon precept, was reinterpreted in a positive context by the Book of Mormon prophet Nephi. To him, this phrase expressed the idea that God teaches us slowly, step by step, like little children, and we learn new truths only as we embrace and live the truths that have already been given to us. In chapter 29, Isaiah warned the people of Jerusalem that because they were faking their faith, judgment would come upon them through many nations. He also gave them hope for a better future. This is one of the most interesting passages in the book of Isaiah because it's a prime example of how Isaiah the prophet had a specific message and meaning for his own audience, the people of Judah in 701 BC, and how Nephi and other Book of Mormon prophets gave Isaiah's words new context, a new interpretation, and new application for their own circumstances and audiences. In 2 Nephi 27, Nephi quoted Isaiah 29 at length, interpreting Isaiah's teachings as a prophecy of the future of the Nephites and the Book of Mormon. Let's look first at Isaiah's original meaning for this oracle. The prophecy can be divided into 3 sections. In the first section, Isaiah prophesied that Jerusalem would be besieged and many Jews would be killed, but that God would ultimately deliver them. Isaiah called Jerusalem Ariel, which means a sacrificial altar hearth. Jerusalem would be like a sacrificial altar because of the destruction that would take place in the city when foreign nations attacked her. Like the prophecy of the mountain of the Lord's house in Isaiah 2, this prophecy begins by telling us that it was about Jerusalem. Those killed in Jerusalem during the siege would speak to the underworld as ghosts. The foreign nations attacking Jerusalem were compared to dust or chaff because the Lord would destroy them with earthquakes and other natural disasters. Eventually, this awful war and its horrors would end, and it would seem to the people of Jerusalem as if the invaders had been only a dream of a night vision. In the second section, Isaiah prophesied that the wicked people of Judah would ignore his warning because they were spiritually blind. The Lord had afflicted the people and their prophets with spiritual blindness, the spirit of deep sleep, as a form of punishment. Isaiah's revelation was like a sealed scroll that no one read. When he shared it with learned men, they refused to open the scroll. When he shared it with unlearned men, they told him they couldn't read. The people of Judah had the outward appearance of righteousness and piety, but inwardly they didn't really honor the Lord. Because of this, the Lord promised to do something amazing, a marvelous work and a wonder that would shock them all so much that they would be speechless. This section concludes with a warning that those who tried to hide their plans from the Lord were as good as dead. The Lord asked rhetorically if a thing that is created is greater than the person who created it. In the third and final section, Isaiah revealed that the Lord's marvelous work would be a renewed society. Isaiah prophesied that a time was coming when his sealed scroll from verses 11 and 12 would be read, but not by tyrants, nor by those who did wrong, nor by those who bore false testimony or perverted justice. His scroll, however, would be read by the deaf, the blind, the downtrodden, and the poor, people who were formerly the outcasts and oppressed of society. A new society would then arise that would honor and respect the Lord and have true understanding and insight. This prophecy was important to Nephi because it gave him hope that although his descendants would be destroyed, they would play a key role in the restoration of the gospel and gathering of Israel in the last days. He interpreted and applied Isaiah's words this way. Nephi prophesied that in the last days there would be a universal apostasy, with all men being drunken with iniquity and all manner of abominations. In that day, the Lord would bring natural disasters upon the people. The wicked would fight against Zion, but their supposed victories would be like a dream or the delusions of a drunken person. The people would stumble spiritually because they had rejected the prophets. At that day, quote, the Lord shall bring forth the words of a book, and they shall be the words of them which have slumbered, unquote. The book Nephi saw would be sealed by the power of God and hidden from the world. The book would be seen only by witnesses specifically chosen by God. They would testify of its truthfulness. The words of the book would be shown to someone who was learned, but he would refuse them because he could not examine the book for himself. The words of the book would then be given to someone who is unlearned, who could not read them. The Lord would give this person power to read the words. The unlearned man would reveal the book to the world, and this would be the start of God's marvelous work and a wonder that would lead to a spiritual outpouring on the world and an ushering in of God's messianic kingdom. Nephi's interpretation applied Isaiah's prophecy of a renewed kingdom of Judah to the coming forth of the Book of Mormon in the last days. The learned man was Joseph Smith Jr., who translated the Book of Mormon by the gift and power of God, and then restored the Lord's church and kingdom to the earth in preparation for the second coming of Christ. Book of Mormon prophets Lehi, Nephi, and Moroni also used Isaiah's prophecy of people speaking out of the dust like a ghost as a metaphor for how the authors of the Book of Mormon would speak to us in the last days, even though they are long dead. This is another example of how Nephi likened Isaiah's words unto his people. To Nephi, the scriptures and writings of the prophets were not just something to be read and understood, they were to be internalized and applied. What is the take-home message from these chapters of Isaiah? First, Isaiah prophesied of the Messiah to come, both directly and indirectly, using types and foreshadowing. Another important message is that we live in an age of broken covenants, just as Isaiah did. The Lord is going to keep his part of the covenant. We can either keep our part and be blessed, or forsake our covenants and stumble spiritually. Finally, Nephi's application of Isaiah's prophecy foretold the coming forth of the Book of Mormon and the beginning of the marvelous work and a wonder in the last days. This has been fulfilled in the restoration of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Lord's kingdom on earth in our time. That concludes this lesson. If you enjoyed it, please click the thumbs up button and leave a comment below. Please subscribe if you'd like to be notified when new lessons are posted to this channel, and visit www.huarc.org to download these notes, the handout for this lesson, and this slideshow. In the next lesson, I'll cover the messages of peace and restoration found in the second part of the book of Isaiah. The reading is Isaiah 40 through 55. See you next time.